Is he on?
Yeah, last second.
Okay, my apologies to anyone watching online. Thank you, Seth, for sending the text. I started everything except for the one program that actually allows you to watch it online. So, we are covering the prospectus, and we are on page 15. Most of the prospectus up to this point has just been introductory material. We just covered the president's report dealing with membership, the joint statement, the building program, and the 4 memorials. Oh, I mentioned 3 of the memorials deal with the joint statement, and 1 deals with the CLC website. One particular member finds our volunteer efforts in regards to the website to be significantly lacking in an age where people really depend on internet access to find out information. And he would like it to be more professional. I think it's probably not a bad idea to go that route, the memorial asked for it to be redesigned from the ground up, completely overhauled, make it more in line with what how a business would approach it, more orderly, more streamlined, and then to maintain it, because things aren't always updated because we have volunteer efforts with it. Ulster is still the one that predominantly serves the web page. But we understand we also have, it's not just the CLC general web page, we have other web pages too. We have a CLC missions web page, we have a IOC web page, we have, there's several others. To get all of that consolidated into one consistent and consistently updated web page. I did some initial looking into what would this cost. The average on a startup is between $500 to $12,000. And the average for maintaining on a monthly basis is anywhere from $200, if you're going to have it professionally maintained, $200 to $5,000 a month. Now, we obviously don't need a huge thing, but it seems like it's something we could get done, for roughly $12,000 a year. And being that is one of the main ways that people access our church body, that doesn't seem too exorbitant in my estimation. Others may have a different idea on that. Okay, any questions up to this point? Because now we're going into the big thing.
The memorial.
Well, they come up later on in the prospectus, and 3 of them come up with this very next section that we're dealing with. Okay?
Yes.
So we have the Board of Doctrine, and the Board of Doctrine's job is, one of their main functions is to advise the church body on doctrinal matters, which that certainly pertains to the joint statement. Well, you see the 4 responsibilities it has right there. Assist in formulating the doctrinal propositions of the Church of the Lutheran Confession, doctrinal supervision of our publications, not subject to the supervision of others. In other words, the Journal of Theology, the Lutheran Spokesman, Daily Rest, even Branches Magazine that's for the women, all of these, the Board of Doctrine has supervision over. It also conducts the colloquy. So we've had 2 pastors join the CLC in the past 3 years from outside of the CLC. Well, the Board of Doctrine's job is to interview them, to check their theology, You know, are they actually in agreement with the theology that we hold to? And then to evaluate their progress as they serve in an extremely limited capacity for a year, to ascertain, you know, are they serving faithfully? And then number 4, it shall at the request of the president or convention represent the Church of the Lutheran Confession in doctrinal discussions with other groups. And here, the Board of Doctrine, I think they have a good point. The way the joint statement has been handled up to this point has been counter to our Constitution. According to the Constitution, it is the job of the Board of Doctrine to have these synodical discussions. Well, we've had a committee that was appointed by the president to handle the discussions between the Wisconsin Synod and the Evangelical Lutheran Synod. So it's not, we haven't quite handled this constitutionally. Not that anyone has a problem with the individuals that have been involved in the discussions. I mean, we trust them implicitly. I mean, they're faithful men. But the Board of Doctrine is elected by the delegates at convention. And so they are answerable to convention, where when you have a committee, it's not really answerable to convention. I mean, it is, don't get me wrong, it's not a trust issue here, it's just a simple matter of order. How are we going to proceed in the future? The Board of Doctrine has an argument here that they should have been the ones involved all along with these discussions with the Wisconsin Synod and the Evangelical Lutheran Synod. So anyways, we have the joint statement laid before us, and the Board of Doctrine's analysis of the joint statement. And I'm not going to read through it all. I mean, we've been through this as a synod now for 7 years now. And the Board of Doctrine's position has been consistently the same. And that position is this document. 2 of the people on the Board of Doctrine right now were on the Board of Doctrine back in 1990 when we tried to have discussions with the Wisconsin Synod and the ELS. And they were partly responsible for drawing up this document that now is called the Joint Statement. And back in 94, they said they regretted even participating in the writing up of this document, because it's not very precise and it's sloppy. So they themselves would wish that this thing would go away, this document. The Board of Doctrine remains of the opinion that the joint statement is not adequate to resolve the doctrinal difference between us and the Wisconsin Synod and the ELS. And that is where they come down on the joint statement. Just so you know, the Board of Doctrine is made up of 2 called pastors. They could be retired, one of which is currently. 1 male teacher, 1 male layman. No, it's 6 individuals. Sorry. Pastor Mark Bernthal, he serves on it as the vice president of the synod. But we have David Schoenbeck, Pastor Fossum, David Rhyme, Peter Kraft, he's the layman, Pastor Andrew Shaw. So we have 5 pastors there. I thought we had to have I think the way the Constitution says it is you have to have a called pastor and you have to have a called worker. So the called worker can be a pastor or a male teacher. So anyways, there's 6 people on the Board of Doctrine, not 4. So I was wrong. So again, their position, you have 3 main points, or 4 main points about their position on the joint statement. I'll read each of those main points. On page 16, First of all, there is a failure to identify the difference that exists between the WELS and the ELS and the CLC in the matter of termination of fellowship with false teaching church bodies. So the document doesn't say what has been the problem all along. It never even mentions it. Second point is the statement contains misplaced and ambiguous wording which allows differing positions on the doctrine of the termination of church fellowship with false teachers. That has been my contention from the get-go with this thing. Under the second portion of it, which we'll get to, well, I'll wait for that comment. I'm just reading theirs right now. It allows for differing positions on the doctrine of the termination of church fellowship with false teaching church bodies to exist side by side. In other words, the same Wisconsin ELS position that they've held to now for 60 years can still find a place in the joint statement. And the CLC position, which we've held now for 60 years, and actually, if you want to be honest, much longer than that. It's the position of the church. Both of those can find a place to stand. And whenever you have a place for two differing positions, there's got to be a problem with the statement. Number 3, the joint statement fails to reject and correct the historic and current official positions and practices of the WELS. So the point here is, listen, this isn't just a matter of history. There's things going on in the Wisconsin Synod and the Evangelical Lutheran Synod right now that are in conflict with Scripture's teaching concerning church fellowship. Pastor David Koenig, missionary David Koenig, during his time as a missionary, he ran into a lot of issues where church bodies affiliated with the Wisconsin Synod were also affiliated with the Missouri Synod and also affiliated with the ELCA. And yet, the Wisconsin Synod has maintained their affiliation, their fellowship with these church bodies. So that's one example. There's other examples. There's examples here in the United States too. It's not just a matter of overseas, but Pastor Koenig ran into that often, and it happens. You know, the United States is a wealthy country, and so these church bodies that spring up in third world countries, they know that if they get affiliated with a church in the United States, they will have a source of funding. Well, often they'll associate themselves with as many churches as they can. We had that issue arise. Pastor Boss in India, this is about 18 years ago now. He was affiliating himself with us, and then also affiliating himself with another Lutheran church. I think it was the ELCA. Now, here's the difference between the way the CLC approaches this matter and the way the WELS approaches it. The WELS says, whatever. The CLC, as soon as we found out about it, missionary Koenig got on a plane to go visit Pastor Boss and said, is this going on? And he said, yes. And he said, well, you've got to leave one or the other. You can't remain with both of us. And he refused. You know what happened? We immediately terminated our fellowship with him. Because we don't want to be in fellowship with a church body like the ELCA. That's what's called triangular fellowship. This one's with this one, and this one's with both of them. Well, fellowship is not just whatever you want it to be. Scripture has a position on fellowship. And then number 4, the joint statement claims unalterable final word status as a confession, superseding all other confessions and official statements past and present. What that means, now that sounds pretty good if you only apply it to the Wisconsin Synod and some of their false statements that have come out over the years. But understand, that's now going to apply, the Wisconsin Synod can now point to this joint statement and say, aha, see there, you said that this supersedes all other documents and confessions, therefore this supersedes your position in concerning church fellowship, church and ministry, and several of our other confessional documents that we have for 60 years now held to as the true doctrine of Scripture. the Wisconsin Synod and the ELS can use this joint statement against us to say you have to abandon those because you agreed this supersedes those.
Well, on that basis alone, I would vote to reject it. I said,
On that basis alone.
Basis alone.
Right. So, that's a significant issue. The Board of Doctrine has other things in its report, a statement concerning seals. This is going on to point C on page 20. CLC statements and registry. Up to this point, we've been very haphazard in our approach to our doctrinal and confessional statements. We've made them in convention and they exist out there somewhere, but we don't have a compilation of what our positions are on issues that have arisen. So this one wants to create a registry so that we have our official doctrinal positions compiled in one place. And I'm sure some pastors do have this in their personal libraries, but we need to do it as a synod.
I'm trying to listen again. If I read, then I'm not going to listen and I'm going to miss what it's saying.
Okay, D is project reviews. At the request of the CLC Board of Education and Publications, we have completed a review of an extensive number of clergy-suggested edits in the Citto Catechism, which include formatting and editing, as well as some doctrinal clarification. Many pastors in the CLC do use the Citto Catechism. I personally do not, in part because there were a lot of just silly edits that never were made. For example, I think in one place with the Sixth Commandment, the word "not" was left out. That's really bad. and yet we used it for years before another edit came out inserting the word "not" in the Sixth Commandment. To me, there's other. I think it's a bit too simplified. I think we can expect a little bit more out of our 7th and 8th graders than what the Citto Catechism presents. So I don't use it personally. And the CLC has never adopted it as our official catechism anyways. So I prefer some of the older catechisms that you're probably more familiar with yourselves, that you probably used. So they're redoing the Citto's Catechism. Review has also begun of the dogmatics notes titled Christian Teaching for Confessional Lutherans Worldwide by Professor Emeritus David Lau. He was my dogmatics or theology professor in seminary, and I very much cherish his approach. I've long wished that he would put together a dogmatics textbook. Well, he's been working on that, and so they've started reviewing it. Understand, like every good theologian, he didn't start from scratch. He used what his seminary professor gave him, who used what his seminary professor gave him. And basically it goes back to Pieper's dogmatics. And Pieper didn't start from scratch either. Christian dogmatics. Well, in our online Wednesday Bible classes once a month, we're using Miller's dogmatics. Well, Miller based his on Pieper, and Pieper based his on, I don't even remember who. But so David Lau's dogmatics course that he taught in seminary was based on Thayer's, I forget the name. Thayer is a Greek grammarian. I forget. Oh, it escapes me. Anyways, there's a direct line between all of these textbooks that have been used in conservative confessional Lutheranism down through the ages. David Lau's is, I think, the next step in that line. Okay, then you have colloquies. We've had 2 pastors join the CLC, and as mentioned, 2 congregations, and the Board of Doctrine recommends that we accept both of them into our fellowship. What time is it? I gotta stop there unless there are any questions. Okay. I have a couple minutes of computer work I've got to do before I get back over here, and that's why I gotta stop right at this moment. Do take time to read through your prospectuses up to this point. I guess I only gave you through page 19, didn't I? You guys,
Page 20.
I gave you page 20?
Through page 19 and 20 and 1.
Oh, good, okay. If you guys wanna work at grabbing the rest of these, you can while I head over to my office, if you would. All right, so I'll see you guys later. The service will be online.
Okay.
And Bill, you're expecting me tonight, correct?
Yes.
Okay,
You're coming?
I am.
Wow.
And then,
You're sleeping in-
right. And then you guys are expecting me tomorrow, correct?
Right.
Okay. All right. Well, God's blessings. Yep. Oh. Too old to kneel down like that anymore. Thank you.